Haiku Dreams, Jason Hanrahan, the Bonsai Garden, this incredible black pine pre-bonsai bonsai in development. Jason Hanrahan, the Bonsai Garden, this Hinaki ceramic pot. Jason Hanrahan, the Bonsai Garden. He is the most generous person I know. I think he has over 13,000 subscribers. But here's the thing, is his Bonsai Garden real?
What did you just say?
Incredibly, I've seen a few comments that suggest that Jason Hanrahan isn't what he appears to be, that he doesn't know anything about bonsai, that everything that he shows in the videos is straight from a book, or worse still, is all AI generated. So I rang Jason up. Jason, me old mate, I'm coming visiting. So if you actually want to find out just who is Jason Hanrahan, what exactly he does know about bonsai, and what perhaps he might have in store for us in 2025, well, I reckon you need to keep watching, because, well, I'm in it. It's going to be good.
There's nowhere to hide.
Finally through the side gate of the Bonsai Garden, and thankfully he did that Halloween video, so I knew there was a side gate, but hopefully I won't get too wired, and Jason will be here somewhere. Certainly there's a well-known friend of Jason just sitting in here all in white. Hello. Here we go. Do you know anything about bonsai? Well, guess what? We are here. We're finally here. It's the Bonsai Garden, and it's Jason Hanrahan.
Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me up here. And I'm going to say now, I've had my head blown apart. You know, when I started with that silly, cheeky intro, you know, Jason Hanrahan, you know, bonsai, fact or fiction? It's definitely not fiction in your garden, is it? This is an incredible setup. And I'll say right now, it's very hard to judge the size of a garden until you come into it. And it is packed full of bonsai, and you've made use of every bit of space.
Well, it's just a typical Barrett estate house garden. You know, they cram as many houses into the plots as they can, and it's just a bit of camera work, make it look maybe a little bit bigger than it is.
And yet it does have a sense of spaciousness about it. I mean, there is so many seating areas here. I'd love to live here. Can I live here? Do you want to swap houses? No, I'm very aware all around us. We've got housing all around us. So I can imagine filming for you could be a bit of a nightmare.
It does feel a little bit overlooked, and there is one particular neighbour who's a bit vocal.
Is there? Is there someone we should wave at right now? You're looking over. Look, everyone knows this tree here features in a lot of Jason's videos. It's got beautiful red fruit on it, and just for the sake of everyone, is this the famous Heron's?
This is the Heron's crabapple tree, and it's one of the most expensive trees in my collection. I justified the expense because it was an opportunity to meet Peter, who's a legend, and it's just a beautiful tree.
I'm going to say it's a privilege to be this close to it. I keep saying it, that it's impossible to judge people's collections until you actually see them up close. We can all fall foul of that thing where we see something on a video and go, yeah, it's all right.
Well, it's fortunate because I was able to actually visit Herons in person. There were, I don't know, 6 or 7 of these, and I was able to just line them all up on a bench.
Yeah.
And it was a beauty contest, and just pick whichever looked the most stunning.
Do you know, we came here for a reason. I was serious when I said Jason Hanrahan, fact or fiction, you know, does he know bonsai? And you and I, what we've been doing, I think we did our channels within a month or two of each other back in 2022.
We started about the same time, yeah.
We've kept in pretty good contact. And I'll say right now, I'm stubborn, but I've learned a lot watching Jason, watching you do your editing, and you've been continually helping me and advising me about, you know, get better with the editing.
I think bonsai YouTube is about 2 things. It's about bonsai, but it's also about the YouTube side of it, the editing.
So as well as being able to do bonsai to a degree, you need to be able to, what, I suppose, entertain people?
Are you not entertained?
Absolutely.
Make them want to watch more.
And I like to think that I try and make the trees look as beautiful as possible.
Well,
You know, it's an aesthetic hobby. It's art and horticulture, so why would we not want the videos to look as beautiful as the trees?
Do you find, though, that there can be a frustration sometimes that, you know, someone has your idea before you do, or you've got it ready and it's on the editing table?
I'm sure the two of us have had that come up time and time again. I'd always have an idea ready to go, and Tony was the worst at this. Tony would beat me to the punch because he was able to turn around videos so quickly, and he was so prolific with his YouTube videos.
Yeah.
He'd always get there first. But it's all about bonsai, it's all about certain techniques, and it's seasonal. So we're all doing repotting or trimming and wiring and styling of trees at a particular time. So what then becomes the issue is how you distinguish your content from other people.
I learned something really big from Jason. Right here, I have a 7-page script. Now, anyone who's watched my channel enough knows that I very rarely script anything, which is probably why it can go from absolutely appalling to funny sometimes. But thank you. This is down to you, by the way, scripting. I actually haven't looked at it yet, apart from Jason Hanrahan questions.
I find that by having a script, you make sure you hit all of your points. Because if you're just talking off the top of your head, you're going to miss something that's key and important.
If you're a budding YouTube creator, or you've got, I mean, so many people have such great collections, and we saw Joe's in a video of mine not long ago. I recognise, I'm sure Jason does too, that the majority of people probably out there watching have probably got better collections than both of us together and have got a wealth of experience. And you're just thinking, do I start a channel? What's the biggest tip with that, would you say?
No, we don't need the competition.
Yeah.
If you're someone who's passionate about anything, whether it's bonsai, knitting, Grand Prix or whatever, and you have that burning desire to try and share that passion with other people, then why not give it a go? All of my videos are filmed on an iPhone. They're all edited on an iPhone. And, you learn through the process of filming those videos over years. With experience, the more videos you do, the more experience you have of editing those videos. You try different ideas and you see what resonates with people.
I would definitely say that one of the big standouts for you is your editing production style, and it's been relatively consistent for a very long time. You really got that very early on, whereas yours truly took me a while to get through into the noggin.
I think what's very important to me is it's not just I'm trying to share the knowledge and the techniques in bonsai. It's how you do that as well. So I'm using graphics. I'm doing close-ups so that you can see the technique in action. But not only that, I'm wanting it to look as beautiful as possible. As I said, it's a visual hobby. It's an artistic sort of endeavour with the trees. And therefore, why not make the videos look as beautiful as possible as well? So I'd like to think you're learning something from watching my videos, but also it's nice to look at.
We've done the Doncaster show, which is actually going to be Newark in 2025, isn't it? Are you going to be
on my birthday?
Oh, that might be a birthday lunch. That would be something. In fact, if you haven't hit bell notifications, ding ding somewhere there on mine and Jason's channel, then you need to, because I reckon Newark, that's going to be quite a good event. We're going to have lots of stuff filmed.
Yeah, and if you want to buy me a birthday tree, I'm down with that.
I've interrupted my well-planned script because this has been grabbing my eye. It's been sitting on the table right in front of us. It's a little weenie marmot, and we know what is the one thing that Jason's famous for. Do you like big trees particularly?
I much prefer the smaller trees, the cute little shohin and marmot trees, and the sort of things that you can develop in a shorter period of time. And they're just cute and magical. What's not to love about a tiny tree that you can pick up in your hand? And you can get more of them on your bonsai benches. This particular one is a larch, and you can see that it's been sort of wound up and coiled over so really tightly with wire. And in fact, you can see that it still has some of the wire embedded in there.
Yeah, and I think the reason why I picked it out is because often people worry about, I mean, I know I've had comments on some of my videos, it's terrible, you almost being abusive to a tree because you let the wire dig in. But I think actually Peter Chan brought it up. It's one of the skills that he developed very early on, leaving the wire in his pines to actually develop that. And the bark grows over and you get this lovely, as you say, this chunky, very interesting to look at. And it doesn't hurt the tree, it really doesn't.
That's easy for you to say.
We had a question from a kind of magic, which I think it's actually Sherry, and she absolutely loves your pots. So what are your top 2 favourite pots? And why have you concentrated so much on Hinata on your channel?
I think that in answer to the Hinata ceramics question, they're just beautiful little pots. And they've got a lovely wabi-sabi, sort of almost rough, slightly unfinished feel to them, which is an artwork in itself. So here's a lovely little studded drum pot that would be wonderful for a larch like the one that you've just seen, or a pine tree, something with a rough, cragged bark would look wonderful in this pot. This is one of my favourite pots as well. This is a Tom Butterworth pot, and Tom is a British ceramic artist and bonsai pot maker. He sells his pots on eBay. They're very, very reasonably priced. But what I love about this particular pot is this surface on it. It almost looks like the cratered surface of the moon. And that beautifully mimics the texture in this aged trunk and aged bark on this oak tree. And not only that, as this tree goes into autumn, it will take on sort of rusty leaf colours, and that's picked out as well by this orange band in the pot. This is a Walsall Studio Ceramics pot, and you can see the beautiful soft turquoise glaze in there, which contrasts beautifully with this autumn foliage on this Deshojo Japanese maple, and that's a favourite pot.
The tree's pretty impressive too, to be fair. I struggle to even picture how a tree would look and what it needs. And you've described characteristics, and I've gone, yeah, that makes sense. And yet when I get to the point of looking at my tree, do you think it's something that we just innately have in us, the ability to see something, or is it hard work on your part to try and do that?
Generally speaking, you're looking for a pot that either complements the tree, so it has the same colour or texture as the bark or the leaves, or you're looking for something that contrasts with that, so it's something that highlights the difference. Or if you're going for something that complements the tree, then you're wanting the pot and the tree to be as sort of in sync in terms of the colours and the textures as possible. And typically with pines and evergreen trees, those craggy trees, those are the trees that you would put into a rough and ready pot.
Like an unglazed,
like
you see an unglazed browns.
And yeah.
Certainly that was something that Goran agreed with Bonsai when I got to chat to him. He made quite a big point about that, actually. That's, we don't need to waste showy pots on those. Doesn't mean they're less expensive. Okay, well, we've moved from pots. I mean, I am impressed with your range of pots, and it's certainly something I'm not good at. But Gus of Guzignats asked, what is your favourite bonsai specimen and why? And I think he's asking you about a tree you like working with.
By far the most popular tree in the garden is Japanese maples, and that's because there are huge varieties of shapes and colours of leaves. So they're just a beautiful sort of canvas of colours around the garden, particularly either first thing in spring or in the autumn just before those leaves drop. Here's an example of a Japanese maple that I just picked up from B&Q, the local big box DIY store, and it was an 8-pound tree that I popped into a wide, shallow basket for the first 2 years, and that was to develop this wonderful sort of Nabarian base on the trunk. And then over the last 2 years, I've just been working on the ramification on this tree, and I'm continuing to work on that to get the fine, twiggy ramification.
We're constantly saying that, scour your nurseries, but scour it for the right sort of stuff. Sometimes, and I've definitely got a garden full of it, we pick up something that costs £2.50 or $3 or whatever, because, I can turn that into a bonsai. And I think, even I'm learning now, perhaps I should have been a little bit more discerning. And if you've got advice in terms of what people perhaps should look at in a nursery.
I think the prime thing that you should be looking for is a tree that's got a nice developed trunk, because that's the thing that takes time and is more likely to give your tree that aged appearance. So if you can get something that's already partway there, you're onto a winner. Because literally the trunk and the base is the framework on which the rest of the tree hangs. And without that, you're on a hiding to nothing.
But I think I will say is that, we all who go through bonsai is great fun. It doesn't matter if you can't get the big trunk. But I think if we're going to be particular about getting more serious about trying to develop trees that are going to be worth the time you put into them, and again, I know people have done some great stuff, but I'm looking at this now, and knowing that he only paid £8 for that, and it's just put in the legwork, that's an incredible tree. We get used to this two-dimensional feel of some people's trees, and it's easy to make a judgment. I'm being constantly blown away when I visit gardens to see just how good they are. And that's the tip men, by the way. It's that day.
They're coming to collect my trees.
Is there any tree, though, that really, in your gut, you think, I want to do everything I can to make this as good a tree as possible? You know, sentimental. Something's got a story to it.
It would probably have to be this tree, which is an absolutely beautiful silver birch, and you can see the coloration on the trunk there is just really exquisite. But what makes it a sentimental tree is that this was a gift from our late friend Tony of Tony's Bonsai, and I made the journey to visit him, and he contributed to a video that I made about mental health, and whilst I was there he gave me this tree to take away. Now obviously Tony has passed away now, and so this tree means something. It sort of represents Tony, and I want to do everything I can to make this into the beautiful bonsai specimen that Tony would have done if he was still around.
It's still fairly young. I mean, what are the challenges you face with something like this? Because this fits in that sort of, it's got a nice root base, so it's come out of the ground, but you know, would you say this has got a long way to go?
What I do need to work on is getting the ramification on these branches and creating that sort of iconic birch weeping effect, which is why I've applied this thin wire to the branches, and really I've tried to apply as thin a wire as possible because we can have issues with branches dying off, so it's quite a sensitive tree, and I think a lot of the time the death of the branches up here is a lot to do with what's happening beneath the soil. Now I've just fairly recently this year put this tree into this quite wide, fairly deep Nanban pot that I got from the Bonsai Show Live in Telford, and I think that's really to try and give those roots the best opportunity and try and keep this tree as healthy as possible into next year.
I'm going to notice there is a lot of wire on this, and probably that'd be my first question to you, and certainly it's ideal because, I mean, wiring scares people. I mean, when I first started, I was like, oh, I don't use wire, and for me it was because I was a little bit, well, I'd never used it before, and it sort of scared me a bit, break branches, so I decided to stay away from it. As I've done more and more practicing with it, I've got more confident, and now I'm happy to use wire where it's appropriate. What are some of the issues you think we need to watch out for with wire, certainly on a smooth bark species like this or a maple, because there's a lot of wire on this?
What you need to be careful of, particularly something that's got a smooth trunk on it, is just as the tree swells and grows, you don't want that wire to start biting into the trunk and marking it, because on something like this, those wire scars will be visible, and they could well be visible for years to come.
I notice you're holding that, again, another beautiful pot, but there's a larch, and you know I love Japanese larch.
There's a company in Northern Ireland that almost everybody who does larch forests buys these larch saplings from, and they're sent to you bare rooted. And this was one of the trees that I planted up individually, and just put a bit of wire in that to develop this sinuous shape that it's got. This is the first time I've had cones on any of my larch trees.
Gosh, I'm forever cutting them off mine, but
I think that it's a shame to get rid of all of them because they're one of the features of the tree, that what it makes that particular species unique.
Now there's a question from Luigi, I believe it's Luigi, who says, hey, how did you get involved in bonsai?
I've always had a love of Japanese maple trees. I've always thought that they're beautiful, elegant trees. And when I moved in here, the first thing that we did was we dug out a koi pond in the garden. And obviously the natural accompaniment to koi and Japanese themed gardens is bonsai. So having watched a few Peter Chan videos, I bought a couple of cheap pots and started bonsaiing some Japanese maples and some juniper trees. And it just went from there, really.
Now, I do have to try and stay on script because everyone knows I'm forever leaving this piece of paper at the other end of the garden and stuff like that. It's only because Jason reminded me. We've actually got a question from Darren of Meadowview Bonsai, and if you didn't know, he has actually got his own channel, and he's got an incredible azalea called the Duchess, and hopefully I'm going to be visiting and seeing the Duchess when it's in full bloom in 2025. He's asked an interesting question, and hey, we're all a bit of fun in bonsai, so here it goes. I've met him, and he's talking about you, a couple of times. He's a big lad with no doubt a big right hook to match. So, would you rather fight a horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
What am I watching?
Oh, that's easy. I'd rather fight the 100 duck-sized horses because I could then stamp them.
You've seen the size of some of the ducks?
I put some big boots on.
Some big boots. Talking of ducks, if you were going to start a bonsai channel, would you go for koi or ducks? Which is going to have the most appeal?
I think there's a natural affinity between koi and bonsai, isn't there, rather than ducks and bonsai.
Well, haven't you heard of Howard the Duck?
I've never seen Howard the Duck, but I've heard of Howard the Duck.
If you want to know what we're talking about, you must know Ryan of Horton Bonsai. You do need to use CC, the translation service, because he's what you call a northern Englishman. So you may struggle to understand what he says, but he's got some great video content, especially about a very angry Howard the Duck. So make sure you've had a look at Ryan, and there'll be a link in the description for that. Now, before we talk about that monster that you've got in your hand, can you believe this? Jason actually asked a question of himself, and I don't know whether he asked me the question. I have to read it out because I couldn't make sense of it, and then something snake-like came into my head when I read it. And he said, which is faster, the African or the European swallow?
Oh yeah, an African swallow may be, but not a European swallow.
Because it's a pretty profound question. I'll tell you what, no. We're not going to go for the answer right now, are we? I'm going to leave that for the end because Jason told me about hooks and ways to keep viewers engaged. So we're going to talk more about that snake-like question near the end. Instead, what's that you've got in your hand? Sorry, I have to interrupt. Look, there is so much great stuff still to come, but we're already over 20 minutes and I've worked it out. This video is going to be over 40 minutes long. Jason deserves better than that. I think you do too. So I'm going to say to everyone, take a break. Do a bit of research, perhaps even have a look at a bit of Monty Python to see if you can get the answer to that swallow question, because that will come back up.
Could be carried by an African swallow.
But as well as that, we're going to be talking about oaks. We're going to be talking a little bit about AI and how it's affecting bonsai. We may even delve into just a teeny bit more on credibility.
I'd rather not.
There are so many more trees. There's so much more stuff from Jason. I know you're going to want to see it. So I'm going to ask you to wait with my little fingers like this, just a few more days. And in the meantime, yes, that is a rather big silver birch. Many of you being on my channel will know that this silver birch has been through the wars. Well, there is going to be some more tree content coming. We've got the silver birch, we've got the Genko, we've got the dawn redwoods, and we've still got a few more viewer questions that have to be answered by Jason. It's worth seeing. If you want to see more of Jason, there's a fantastic couple of videos where he and I and Candace of Bonsai Science are working feverishly on a 4-foot juniper, which, well, it's still got a long way to go, but it's quite fun. So if you want to see that, that's there. Otherwise, you just have to wait 3 days, and then there's more of Jason. Happy bonsai and God bless. Cheers.